touching that. Give me another round. No, it's off.
Zach, what the bloody hell do you think you're doing? You really want to choke her out in a lot of things?
Yeah.
Now pull it tight. Oh, yeah, now she's in trouble.
Oh wait, I know you. You're from that weird family, aren't you?
We're not weird.
We don't like wrestling.
How do you know if you've never been? Hello?
My name is Hutch Morgan. I'm calling from WWE. We'd like both of you to come try out for us.
It's all fake anyway, isn't it?
Right, welcome everyone. This is episode 64 of the Comics in Motion podcast. I am Chris Phelps, and as always, my co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to Comics in Motion. What we like to do here is we like to review movies and TV shows that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be reviewing from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader.
And I'll be reviewing from the TV and movie perspective.
And what we also like to do is we also like to spoil the hell out of everything we review. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then we'd advise you to proceed with caution. And what we also love is when you can head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcast catcher of choice and drop us a 5-star review. This really helps us to grow the show and gets us out to other listeners. Now, Chris, we're just recording a few hours after the latest Endgame trailer. And I know it's a running theme, almost a running gag, isn't it? We talk about Endgame almost every show for the last couple of months or something. But have you managed to catch that?
Dave, have I managed to catch it? I think I missed the initial release, which is about 1 o'clock UK time. And I was about 20 minutes behind because I saw a lot of our fellow comic Twitter accounts retweeting it and stuff. And I think I've watched it now about 6 times. I have definitely watched it, and it gets better every time I watch it. I cannot wait, Dave.
It's good, isn't it? And again, I think you've done a brilliant job. I don't want to beat up on Dark Phoenix, but, you know, where they've given us the whole plot there. But again, they've not really told us a great deal, but just dropped in some little snippets, you know, meanwhile having a bit of a greatest hits album sort of approach to the trailer as well, because we got loads of clips from the earlier movies. So, yeah, I must admit, it did get little goosebumps there when I was watching it.
Oh, it's brilliant. It was a brilliant. And there was a couple of things. If anyone's not watched the trailer, then I am going to spoil it slightly. So please bear with me. As you know, we spoil everything, don't we, Dave, when we do our reviews usually. So I'm going to do the same in this section. But yes, there's a couple of little nods there. We've got Thor's hammer, and we've also got Tony walking with all the current Avengers in these nice new shiny suits, Dave.
Is it definite? It's definitely Tony.
Yeah, there's a bit where you've got Thingy on his shoulder.
So Rocket's, it looks to me like War Machine.
Yeah, but when they're walking through the airport, wherever they're walking, and they've got their new suits
is he
on,
there as well, is it?
Tony's there, literally the last still of them walking, and Tony's in the middle walking with them. Definitely, 100% it's Iron Man.
We know this is possibly going to be his last movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he didn't necessarily need to get back to Earth. I'm being a little bit, not facetious, what's the right word? I'm kind of, there's an element of doubt, isn't there?
Yes.
But I guess they have spoiled that a bit. But yeah, those suits look pretty cool. We saw those, didn't we, in a still, in a picture. But they look pretty damn good, I think.
The one thing I noticed, Dave, with the trailer, I don't know if you picked up on it, was they look like different times, because Captain America and obviously Black Widow, let me say it again, Captain America and Black Widow have got different haircuts. He's not got his beard, which I mentioned last week. They look slightly younger on them. So these clues there, which I'm pretty sure once we've watched the actual film will make sense. But at the moment, there's nothing, which is great. Exactly what you just said, Dave. I totally agree with. For once, we're not getting anything ruined, which I think is really good.
I mean, we've seen a lot more Hawkeye in this one, haven't we? So we just got a little nod to him in that first trailer, but we get a few more flashes of him. And I'm not sure if it's been confirmed, but there's, you know, he became a character called Ronin in the comics, which is a bit more like basically like a ninja kind of thing. You know, Ronin is a samurai without a master, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he took on this Ronin persona. And there was a young lady called Kate Bishop who took on the Hawkeye mantle. in the last few years. I think she came out, it was this decade, but it was the early part of it. It was like 2012-ish. And there's a little clip there, and he's teaching a young girl archery, isn't he?
Yes.
And I just wonder if we're maybe going to see Kate Bishop in this.
Ah, right. Or unless she's the next phase, Dave.
Yeah, that's could be, couldn't it? I mean,
I mean, you said it last week, didn't you, with the Captain Marvel, with Rambo's daughter, didn't you? What's she called? Monica, was it? Monica Rambo.
Monica Rambo, yeah.
So maybe they're setting these characters up subtly as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously what happens. But yeah, good spot, Dave. Good spot.
The next Avengers, the young ones. Teen Avengers.
Teen Avengers, yeah. Could be anything, could it really? But fantastic. And I think, again, April the 26th, it just can't come quick enough now. It's just, I'm just wishing it away, Dave.
Yeah, I know. But we've got some things in between then and now, haven't we? We've got Hellboy to review, so I'm trying not to wish my life away. But yeah, I can't wait, to be honest. And how great was that little scene with Thor and Captain Marvel at the end there? It
was brilliant. That was brilliant. And we saw the hammer again. Which was like, oh, here we go. You know, he wasn't the Stormbreaker without a doubt. It's definitely his hammer.
No, it's definitely Mjolnir.
Yeah, definitely. So brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So we'll see, Dave.
And just, I mean, while we're on the Avengers and all around that space, so I did manage to catch a Kevin Smith video just online, and I hadn't realised that in Captain Marvel, in the Stan Lee cameo, it's actually Stan Lee's practicing his lines for a script, and it's the Mallrats movie. So Stan Lee, that was one of Stan's first real cameos, and one of his best cameos, because he's playing himself and he gets lots of lines, and, you know, he contributed to some of the writing for it as well. And, you know, this script that he's writing is the Mallrats script, which is Kevin Smith's movie. So, you know, he came out of it and he was quite emotional because he was good friends. He became good friends with Stan. Yeah, I thought, oh, can you imagine that? Because he's only a kind of, he doesn't do big budget movies. He's not really, you wouldn't say he's an A-list film director. No. So it must be fantastic for him.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, really. I didn't see that. I didn't spot that at all with the cameo, but yeah, really good. I did see the Kevin Smith stuff online, but I wasn't aware of what it was. I'd never really read what it was. I just saw a few headlines. So yeah, it's nice that though as well, especially everything that's happened with us losing Stan as well this last year.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, we're going to have to review more Rats at some point. It is one of my favourites to go back to be quite honest, and loads of geeky comic references in there, and so we'll do that at some point. Yeah,
definitely. Now to pan over to a bit of DC, Dave, bit of DC news. It's the 80th anniversary this year of Batman, so in the cinemas, in the next couple of months, they're actually re-releasing the Christopher Nolan trilogy on IMAX. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think it was on IMAX. I think I watched it on IMAX when it first came out, and it was sensational. But yeah, so they're re-releasing that, which is pretty good news as well. So if you haven't seen it, you've got to go and see it on IMAX.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I think I watched Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises on the cinema, not on IMAX. I think I caught Batman Begins on DVD, I think. So, yeah, I guess, are you going to go and see it on IMAX?
Yeah, I probably will. I'm thinking maybe The Dark Knight Rises, because that, you know, as you know, it's my favourite.
When were we, because we were going to review that in the next couple of months. So when is it coming out?
I think it's April. And maybe I should have researched that, Dave, before we...
Not to throw you under the bus there, but so soon. But okay, so maybe we should look into that, and then it would make sense, I think, if it was. We'll tie up our review of Dark Knight Rises, and we'll go and watch that in IMAX.
Yeah,
that's how movies are meant to be watched, isn't it, on the big screen?
Exactly. And a little bit of the 30th of March, Dave. Comes out.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's not that far away, actually. So, like I say, I maybe should have researched that before. Anyway, but one little story, actually, about The Dark Knight, not The Dark Knight Rises, but The Dark Knight. So we go to the cinema. I think it come out, I think it was around May or June time, something like that. It might have even been later. And it was really warm. in Manchester, which is totally unheard of, as you know, Dave, having lived here or lived in Manchester for a long time, didn't you, before you moved? And we went to the cinema. There was me, my wife, and my daughter, and Jordan was about, she must have been about 8 or 9 then. So we go and watch it, and it's absolutely sweltering in the cinema. I had shorts on. The air conditioning broke. Now, obviously, The Dark Knight is not a short film. So I think it's nearly 2 hours 30, 2 hours 40. And we were in the cinema, Dave. And you know when you've got shorts on and they're stuck to the chair? It was that we were wringing wet, all of us. Like, me and Sam are bad for anyway for sweating at the best of times, but we were gone. And I mean, terrible. I enjoyed the film. And I remember Jordan leaning over going, you know, she's 18. I remember leaning over going, Dad, how long is this on for? I'm so hot, you know. And I think at one point, Sam had to sort of take her out the cinema for a couple of minutes, you know, to come back. And everyone was the same, fanning each other, everything. Honestly, it was horrendous. We get outside, and I go straight to some poor guy there, went, as only I would do, Dave, and went, excuse me, he said, he really enjoyed the film. He's roasting there. What's going on? And this guy went, oh, I'm really sorry, the air conditioning's broke. Do you want a refund? I went, yeah, I do.
Happy days.
Yeah, but then this woman with her kids overhears it. The guy's got a queue of about 30 people queuing up for their money back by the time we'd finished. You can see him looking at me, used to say, you bar steward.
Yeah.
So,
just threw him under the bus there.
As much as I loved the film, I got to watch it for free in the end, which was pretty nice. But yeah.
I'm surprised. I'm not sure I'd have stuck that out, though. I mean, being really overly, you know, when it's cooking like that, I can't imagine enjoying a movie.
No, well, to be fair, I mean, I give it an Atlantis when we reviewed it, didn't we? Which you've never forgiven me for. But to be fair, I did need to go and watch it again for that reason, because your mind was elsewhere. I loved it, absolutely loved it, but my mind was elsewhere because it was like a war of attrition. It's like going in a gym, in a sauna, thinking, how long can I last in here? That's honestly that's how bad it was. Yeah. And there's not many days of the year in England where you can say you were steaming hot, but that was one of them, and then we were stuck in the cinema.
Very good, very good. So did you catch anything else in the news?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One of them, there is comics based on this, but it's an Aladdin trailer. Now, the second one was released this week. Now, the first one got absolutely panned because of this weird steroid-looking Aladdin Will Smith that came out of the lamp. It looked awful. I don't know whether you caught that, Dave.
Yeah.
It was really bad. But this new trailer looks really good. It's got like proper Will Smith in it. It's got a bit of his sort of music in there, a bit of this sort of R&B, a bit of rap music, but it's also got the Robin Williams fun factor to the character, which is what was totally missing in that first one. It looks awful, but this looks really interesting. It actually looks like something that could be quite fun to watch. Have you seen all the trailer at all, Dave?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I mean, honestly, I kind of like the cartoon as well, you know. But yeah, I thought the trailer looked pretty good. Yeah,
he did. He looked pretty good. So that's going to be something we'll might be able to review this year, Dave, as well. And then also this one's more your domain, Dave, so you can tell me where it is. But there's a Marvel version of comics called What If, which is where the writers were allowed to go off script and sort of tell parallel universes and stuff like that. It might become relevant in Endgame because they actually have been some of the rumours, but they're actually bringing out a full animated series on this on the new streaming service Disney, which is pretty good. So I don't know, do you know about that background, Dave? The what if series?
Yeah, so what if is like a whole series of comics, and what they usually do is they'll take one event in the comics and then they'll just explore a story of, well, it went this way in the comics, what if it went a different way? So a couple that come to mind, you know, that I remember from, well, that stick out in my mind at least are, you know, what if Spider-Man actually joined the Fantastic Four? And what if Wolverine actually killed the Hulk? So when Wolverine turned up in Hulk 181, well, what if he actually killed off the Hulk? And usually what happens is, you know, it goes off on this story and it ends up in a fairly unpleasant way because it kind of all bets are off, you know. In a normal mainstream comic, you have to kind of keep the characters alive, or if you kill them off, you know, you you kind of know that they're going to come back eventually. Whereas in these what if stories, you know, quite often there's like a bit of a sinister end to them. But yeah, I'd be interested. Look, I'm going to watch it anyway.
Yeah.
I do like, you know, occasionally to dip into the what if, but they are kind of throwaway stories as well. But the nice thing about them is they do tend to be one shots, you know, so you don't have to read 30 comics to find out, you know, what happens in a story, and it's just a one-off comic usually.
Yeah, no, that's quite good. That's interesting. It's a different dynamic as well, isn't it? Because a lot of fans like that difference and sort of built within the story of different characters, like the Hulk or Wolverine, like you say. So, no, that'd be an interesting one. A bit like what they did, I think, in some respects, Dave, with Logan in the film, because that was like, as they all say, it was a slightly different universe, wasn't it? To kill him actually off it's pretty unheard of, isn't it, for characters? We know Hugh Jackman and Claus, but no, I'd be interested to watch it. I will. I've enjoyed some of the animated stuff we reviewed as well. It's really got me back into it. As you know, I actually bought Hulk v Wolverine. I can see it from here now as we're doing this.
Oh, so. Did you buy it? I don't think you told me that. Yeah, right.
Don't worry, Dave. It was something like $1.99 off eBay, but I bought Hulk v Wolverine, Hulk v Thor. It's a double pack, so yeah. No, I've got it. I've watched it since, to be fair.
Yeah, I do often go back to the Hulk v Wolverine, Hulk versus Wolverine one, to be honest. I think that's my favourite.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. Now, Dave, this I wanted to bring up. It's not really comic book based. That's always it's not comic book based, but everybody who listens to the podcast knows how much we love Ricky Gervais in The Office. Now, I must admit, I'm only halfway through the series at the moment. I think you've probably gone ahead of me, but how good is Afterlife on Netflix? I've absolutely loved it so far.
Yeah, it is one of the better things I think I've seen. You know, again, not in our comic book world. You know, we both love The Office, love Ricky Gervais, all the stuff that he does, and yeah, I think it's more. Actually, it's more emotional than I thought it was going to be. It's really quite a hard-hitting subject, isn't it?
Yes.
So, I mean, if people haven't, not particularly spoiling what it's about, because this is all in just the regular adverts, but essentially, you know, he's lost his wife to cancer, and he's suicidal. So, and he ended up he was going to top himself, and then ended up not doing, because he kind of looked at his dog. They'd had a dog together, and you know, so no one was going to be there to look after the dog. So that was what brought him back from the brink. But he decided for himself that he was going to live life on his terms. So he just says whatever he wants to anyone, you know, and so no social niceties to him at all. And it just creates some very, very funny scenes, but also, like I say, it quite often it'll go from 1 minute from being very funny to the next really being quite emotional.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Dave. You've just hit down there, but there's a lot of lump in the throat moments, isn't there? Like you sat there thinking, God, it's so clever, so good writing, and the way he portrays that character is fantastic. But I've got to say, and not spoiling it, the guy who's his brother-in-law is just a cross between David Brent and Stephen Merchant in Extras. He's absolutely. He's not supposed to be funny, but he's a bumbling idiot funny, isn't he? And I've talked to it so much. And also, his partner in Extras, the Scottish girl in Extras, she's actually in this as well, which is nice to see as well. She's a carer, isn't she?
Yeah.
That's really good. But yeah, I won't say any more, but please, if you've got Netflix, please get on there and watch it, and just be open-minded on it, because it's such an emotional journey. It really is.
Yeah, don't watch it with the kids, though.
No, not at all. Well,
some of the language is, it's not like this show.
No, and also, I've got to say before we move on, is that you were right. Ryan Reynolds, when it comes to marketing of stuff, he's absolutely fantastic. We said it in our Deadpool review. He took on the marketing on his own. You know, whether it be turning up in the suit, you know, literally at a birthday party, to in the middle of an American football game, or whatever he is. His marketing, and viral marketing, was so clever for Deadpool because of the budget and that. Now, Ricky Gervais only released really one clip for this series, and it went completely viral, Dave. You know which one I'm talking about. And he goes past a school, and I'm not going to say it properly, but the school kids giving him abuse about him being well, in fact, I won't say what his kid's saying, but basically
the kid's giving him some abuse.
Give him abuse, shall we say? Just watch it, and he replies with an absolute non-PC response, and it's so funny, and everyone was retweeting it. It was all over Facebook. I've never seen a negative comment, and the one thing I've picked up on this one, Dave, is I've seen a lot of comments on Ricky Gervais's personal Twitter account and the Facebook Netflix account saying, I don't like Ricky Gervais at all, but this was absolutely sensational. I absolutely loved it. So I think that's what you've got to take. Plenty of people have said it to me, I don't like Ricky Gervais, I don't get the Office. And I understand that, that's fine, it's your opinion. But a lot of people have now watched it and gone, you know what, it was absolutely brilliant. So go in with it open-minded. It's not the extras, it's not the Office, it's something completely different. And he's acting in it, he's first class.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him act that emotionally before.
No. He's really good, Dave, and really good. And he shows his range, he's got it, hasn't he? You know, he's renowned for just taking the mick, but it's really good. Really good.
Yeah. No, it is good. It is good.
Oh, good stuff. Now, Dave, we're going to go into the comics background, but we haven't really got a lot of comics this weekend background, have we? But would you like to announce what we're watching and reviewing?
Yep. So we thought this week we'd review something a bit different. So we were going to review Fighting with My Family. Not much of a comics background to this one, you would think, wouldn't you?
Yep.
Well, you'd be wrong. And if you're thinking these guys have just made up some tenuous comics link to review a movie that they wanted to watch anyway, you'd probably be right. So, for those of you that don't know, this movie is all about the female wrestling character, Paige. I will call her a character because it's not a real name, is it? But there is actually, I mean, there's tons of wrestling comics out there, but Boom Studios actually came out with a wrestling title called WWE back in 2017, and in issue 14 they focused on basically the women's revolution, and it focuses on a lot of the pioneer kind of female wrestlers that were coming through. It doesn't focus so much on Paige, but I think Paige is in there. It's actually written by a guy called Dennis Hopeless, which, despite his name, is actually quite good.
What a name.
But it's a bit unfortunate, isn't it? Yeah, so Dennis has written for Marvel Comics, for Image. I mean, he wrote, like, I think it was Avengers Arena, I think it was called. It was like a whole Hunger Games thing with different sort of teenage young characters, and it was a really good series actually. So that was when he first came to my attention. But yeah, I mean he's really up there, like I say, in the comics world right now. So to get someone like him writing a wrestling comic and, like I say, focusing on female wrestling in that issue 14 and the subsequent issues, some of the subsequent issues as well, I think it's a pretty good thing. But Chris, hopefully you've got a bit more than that on the movie background.
Well, yes, just before I get into that, Dave, when it comes to WWE and wrestling, you know, even at 40 years old, how much growing up that meant to me. I've watched it since I was 9-10 years old. It's got worse as I got older, and obviously I do a show talking about the wrestling once a week called Indie Combat, a podcast as well. Just get a little tip in there, which you have actually been on, David, as well, haven't you? When we reviewed WrestleMania 6, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior from 1990.
Ultimate Warrior,
yeah. And we decided that it was better when we were younger. But anyway, let's not talk about that. So when it comes to wrestling, there's going to be a lot of things probably in this review today that I will probably throw in there, which I know, because I still keep up to date. I don't really watch a lot of the products. I'll skim through it, but I do know the background stuff is something that drives me crazy. I'm absolutely like a wrestling historian. So there might be stuff I'm wrong on, so correct me, guys, if not. But most of the time, I'm pretty much on the money with this sort of thing, especially with the wrestling, because I love the whole, fake and reality storylines and stuff that actually really goes on. And there's quite a few things that cross over in this. So let's get into it. So this film came out this year, 2019. It's actually based on a documentary, and it's called The Wrestlers Fighting with My Family. So anybody from the UK who has got Channel 4 on demand, it's still on there. And this is where the whole idea for this film come from. The film actually takes, beat for beat, this 45-minute documentary and puts it into a film. The Rock saw it, so it's produced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and it's actually written and directed by Stephen Merchant, and he's a star in the film as well as The Rock. It's Florence Pugh is Paige, Jack Lowden is a brother, Nick Frost is the dad, and Lena Headey is actually Cersei Lannister as well from Game of Thrones. And they did a good job on her, making her look like Paige's real mum. Now, this film, which is really, really interesting, because it was based on this documentary. When The Rock saw it, absolutely blew him away. He was like, I've got to make a film about this. Now, who it's based on is a wrestler called Paige. Like I say, we're going to call her Paige because that's her actual WWE name. Her real name is Soraya Bevis is a real name. So we'll just call her Paige, Dave, because even I can't pronounce it even now. So, which is based on a mum's character in the ring. That's actually what a real name is. So WWE Studios were brought together a couple of years ago. They wanted to produce some actual proper documentaries, proper films. They've been renowned over the last 5 or 6 years, or longer than that, probably 10 years, bringing out a film series called The Marine. The original ones with John Cena, which wasn't that bad, but we're on something like Marine 8 now, you know, back in the game or whatever the heck it's called, some nonsense name. But originally the first one was quite well received, and they wanted to do hard-hitting documentaries, so they teamed up with Film Force to produce this. It's a biopic, which is based off Channel 4's obviously documentary, which is really good. Now, there is a few things that, looking into this, and I knew when I watched it, are not actually historically true. Now, Paige, because it's a Hollywood biography, she never actually met The Rock. So a lot of the stuff in the film, which doesn't matter, is not true. So a lot of the timeline stuff's just skew-iffed and obviously Hollywoodized to get The Rock in the film. When she signed for the WWE in 2011, The Rock had only just come back at the same time, but she was in the development territory, this NXT, so they never would have even met. So it's all stuff that adds in, and I think it works well within the film. Now, box office wise, was always aimed at a streaming service. They wanted to release it across the world on a minimum sort of cinema release. It was never going to be, it's not going to be an Avengers or it's going to be a Shazam or Aquaman by any means, but it was something that they wanted to gain a lot of interest and snowball off. So, and then eventually it's going to be coming on Amazon Prime and Netflix. And I think it's suited to something like that, to be fair. Now, so far, it's made, in its first few weeks, it had made 8 to 10 million. That's off 2,500 theatres. And then on top of that, it's took another 2.5 million from the first week and then another 8 million as well. So I think at the moment we're on about 45 million it's made. Now, the budget I'm not aware of, but they'll make more money when they release it out to the streaming services. And obviously it's going to end up on Film 4 as well. And that's where like the advertising and marketing comes in. So it's been a complete success so far financially. It's a good biopic film. What it'll also end up on, Dave, is the WWE Network. And this is one of the reasons that they've done these sort of films, because the WWE Network's very much like Netflix. I've been a subscriber for on and off for a couple of years now. And what you can do is you can watch like the old matches, So if you really wanted to watch WrestleMania 6 again, Dave, and that's a whole event, you can get on there. So they have a lot of documentaries, backstage stuff, some real stuff, not the fabricated stuff that we got when we were younger. Like if you bought a WWE magazine, it'd be like, how's Hulk Hogan going to, defeat The Undertaker? Who is this man? They proper carried the storylines over into all the magazines, because I used to buy all them. Then I would buy the behind-the-scenes magazines. That was the real stuff that was going on. So this is where you learn about like all this stuff. So it has been a complete success. So it's going to be on a lot of streaming services by the end of this year, this film. So if you don't get to see it in the cinema, then I would advise you to go and watch it on one of them services I've mentioned. Now, critically, which I think is absolutely going to love this, Dave, critically, this is actually the highest rated film on Rotten Tomatoes we've reviewed. Now,
really?
Yes, honestly, no matter what we've reviewed and our personal opinions, and we know like Avengers, Infinity War, stuff like that, at the moment, of 156 reviews, it's at 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's got an average user review of 7.29 out of 10. On Metacritic, it's at 68 out of 100. That's based on 38 reviews. And then my favourite, the old audience poll by Cinema Score, it's at an A-, which is an A+ to F scale, which I mention every week. And then on Post Track, which is another review site, it's at 83% with a 57% definite recommended rewatch for people. So it's a very, very good score. And I found that fact, obviously it's different reviewers reviewing this, Dave. They may be all wrestling fans, as you know, the comic book fans review the Marvel stuff and DC, but I just found that really interesting for what it is. It's a biopic Hollywood feel-good film, really. But Paige, everything about this film is good, and I would advise, because it was the first thing we did after we watched it, me and Sam, is we came straight home and watched the documentary on her. And if you watch the documentary, Dave, you'll be blown away about how many beats are taken from the documentary in the actual film. It's uncanny, honestly. And I genuinely would say that to anybody who's listening to watch that. If you can't get it and you're over in the US or other parts of the country, I have seen that it's available on Vimeo, and I think there's a few parts on YouTube where it's broken down, so it's not all one 45-minute documentary, but it's in 3 or 4 parts of like 15-minute slots. So get on there, guys. I definitely recommend you watch it, because it'll add a bit of meat to the bones to what we're going to review today.
Yeah, so I mean, I was just looking. It looks like the budget was 11 million. Yeah. According to Wikipedia. So how accurate that is, I don't know. But what did you say it's made at the minute?
About 45.
45. It's not a bad return at all for a low budget movie.
Yeah, and also, like I said to you, the streaming services, Dave, it's going to go crackers on them. It's going to it'll just take over all of them, because it will be one of them films. You'll see it on normal domestic TV in a couple of years as well. So I think that's where, with this sort of thing, they play it differently, don't they, with the marketing and stuff. And obviously having The Rock in it adds a level anyway, doesn't it? Because he's actually the highest paid actor in Hollywood. So just having him in there, and it's actually his Seven Bucks production company, and Seven Bucks is all he had in his pocket when he moves to the WWE and he wants to change his life. So he always remembers that, because he's a very grounded, humble guy, The Rock. So he always wanted to do something with the $7 he had in his pocket, and that's what this is. So all these documentaries and films he brings out are all based on $7 productions.
Ah, very good. Very good. Bit of insightful information there.
Yeah, probably useless information, but insightful.
Yeah, well, no, it's like anything like that, isn't it? You sort of don't know where does that come from, $7, like.
Yeah, clever, because it's actually his ex-wife as well. He runs a company with him, which you wouldn't think that they'd get on, but they actually get on really well. So he's Danny Garcia's his wife. And it is a woman, Dave, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I was just thinking Danny DeVito. I'm sure that wouldn't.
That would be twins all over.
That'd be twins too, wouldn't it?
Now, that is a good film. That's a stupid film, that, but yeah, really good.
Very good.
So are we ready to go for the review, Dave?
Yeah, let's go for it.
We start the film off, we get an introduction to sort of Paige and her family. It flashes up, it's like, it's the year 2000. And what we get Paige's brother, who's called Zach Beavis. He's watching the WWF then, or the WWE. And he's actually the King of the Ring, which is usually an event that's on around June time. And then his sister comes in, Soraya, who's Paige. She comes in and actually takes the remote off him and she puts on Charmed. Now, you keep seeing Charmed at the start, but Charmed is actually where she gets the name from, because her favourite character in Charmed is called Paige. And they start fighting, and the mum and dad come in, who's Nick Frost and Cersei Lannister, Dave, shall we say. She comes in, the mum, and they decide, I think we need to put a wrestling match on. So what we end up with then is it pans forward till they're 18, and she's fighting against her brother, where they've got different ring names. So she's called Brittany Knight, and her brother's now called Zack Zodiac. And this was something that, for Paige in real life, was something that was helped with her training, because she fought with men in the ring wrestling. We know it's predetermined and all that, but that's where all that comes from. And then mum and dad have got their own wrestling promotion, so they promote around the Norwich area. Rick and Julia are a mum, and great performances. And when you see her parents in real life, they're pretty much not far off how they look, but they're actually struggling financially. So what happens is, after one of the events, you get Rick and Julia in their sort of, it looks like they're in Blackpool, to be honest, in their sort of camper van, clapped out transit. and they ring up the WWE. Now, the guy they ring is a guy called Hutch Morgan, who's played by Vince Vaughn. Now, a bit of meat on this one, Dave, is Hutch Morgan is a fictional character completely. He's not anybody in the WWE, but I think he's based on, and this is just me spitballing, a guy called Bill DeMott, who is actually called, this is true, Dave, his wrestling name was Hugh Rection. That was his name, Hugh Rection. I'm not joking. Years ago. But Bill DeMott.
Is his second name George or something?
I don't know. It's a terrible name, but Bill.
Hugh G. Yeah, I don't know.
It's horrendous. But this Hutch Morgan's based on Bill DeMott. Now, I think they would have probably used a Bill DeMott character, but he got actually fired from the WWE a couple of years ago for bullying and the way he treated the characters. Now, you get this with these characters a bit later on, and I think that's where they've used artistic license. So they've generalised maybe a couple of trainers, but I think it's based on this Bill DeMott because there's loads of controversy about him. You know, with really bad, Dave. You know, we all know wrestling is a predetermined sort of stage performance and fake and stuff, but it was quite serious what he did. So I think that's who his character is. So they contact his office, and basically it's like, you know, no answer. And then eventually they agreed to do a tryout. Now, this is quite a common thing in this. So Paige and Zach go, and they go to this tryout before SmackDown at the O2 Arena. And come to the end of it, they're at the arena. Now, again, this, Dave, is an absolute made-up section. They bump into The Rock. Now, The Rock completely starts talking to him. And I knew he was setting him up. As a wrestling fan, I knew he was going to do this. It doesn't matter, you know, because he'll say to something like he says, he goes, "What's your name?" And he goes to say, "What's your name?" And he goes into a full Rock promo. And The Rock's one of the best ever wrestling promoters, Dave. That's why he ended up films and that. He's so good. And he's like saying to her, like, you know, "You're so white, you look like a witch, you look like you come out of Harry Potter," and all this. And he just ends up totally throwing him. And then at the end of it, they're like blown away. And I love the fact that Zach's got this weird suit on, and he's got the suit with like the drain pipe pants where he's got white socks on because they're too short. But the Rock's giving him a bit of inspiration. So they do this tryout, and obviously Zach's a good wrestler, but he doesn't get taken on. And the only person that does get taken on is Paige by Vince Vaughn's character Hutch. And basically, we then get, for the first part of the film, we get this tug of war and jealousy with Zach, because he was the one who's been wrestling since he was 10 years old. She didn't get into it till she was a teenager. And he's just so jealous of what's going on. And it's like a bit of a tit for tat thing, isn't it, with the start of him? I mean, I know I've summarised quite a lot there, Dave, but what did you think of like the start of the film and the introduction? You're an old wrestling fan from years ago, but not knowing any of the background of these characters.
Well, just old in general. Well, yeah, I mean, I think I still think of it as the WWF. So
yeah,
when it was that in the kind of mid 80s, and you had, like, say, the Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, I think the Undertaker was starting to come into it. You know, I think I sort of dropped out of it a bit then, and because I don't want to use the word fake, but because it's predetermined, that is a better word. But so is gymnastics and what have you. You know, this is what I guess I thought to myself years later, but it's still damn impressive what they do there. So that's, you know, I do have a lot of respect for what they do. But I think, so thoughts from the initial, this kind of first act, I think I wasn't really sure going into it what to expect. I think I was expecting to see a lot more of The Rock. I didn't know it was going to be focused on Paige. So that was a surprise, but it was kind of nice. I found it all quite charming. I thought the way they set up the family, obviously, you know, they haven't got much money. They're going around in this beat-up old van. I like the way that they seem to be taking on these young kids and, you know, like giving them wrestling lessons and stuff. I can't imagine that brings in much money, but it seemed to be, you know, something they were doing for the community. And yeah, it was pretty impressive when when Dwayne Johnson turns into The Rock, and he goes from his normal conversational style, and then he turns on that wrestling, and gives them a good sledging, and calls them Harry Potter rejects and stuff. It's really, really good, and I kind of liked her brother as well, like Zach. I liked his character because, again, he didn't have a huge wrestling frame, but I liked it. He had a bit of cockiness about him, and when they were doing the tryouts, I liked his line. He turned around to he swore or something, and then he said, "Oh, I shouldn't swear in the presence of ladies," and then turns around to one of the other wrestlers with the the longer hair, the more kind of 80s style, and says, "Sorry."
I tell you what was funny, Dave, at the start was Stephen Merchant, because Zach has got his girlfriend pregnant, and Stephen Merchant is his girlfriend's dad and the mum, and they're so straight laced, aren't they? And they're like saying, "Don't say this, don't say that." And when they get the call for the tryout, they're saying about it being fake, aren't they? And Nick Frost's character, the dad, and I know this was in the trailers. Rick, he looks suddenly across the table. He goes, "Well, it's all fake," and he goes, "I beg your pardon." And everything they try and be normal, don't they? Obviously, living in this squalid, rancid house with there's no home. They're not house proud or anything, because obviously they can't afford to be, because they're living, day by day in this business. But everything they say just goes down, doesn't it? Absolutely goes down the pan. No matter what they say, if you're like, "I've been in jail for 8 years, for violence," and then the other one's like, "Oh, my other brother, where's he? He's in jail." But some of the lines they deliver, and Stephen Merchant goes like full on extras, doesn't he? And sort of like he's so good, like Ricky Gervais is like just playing an awkward person without not even saying a lot. He's so clever the way he moves his body, and that, 'cause he's massive. And what I like with it though, Dave, is they tried to make him not look as if he was 6'8", because he was obviously towering over everyone. But it was just some one-liners between the family that was so good and funny, and some of the writing was just like, we were laughing out loud watching some of the bits. And again, a bit like when we watched Captain Marvel, there was probably not a lot of other people laughing with us, but I got a lot of the insider jokes they were saying about the wrestling and that, which is good.
Yeah, and I liked... he's brilliant, Stephen Merchant, isn't he? Have you ever seen Hello Ladies?
No.
I think there was a series, but I saw the movie, and he plays this, he plays Stephen Merchant basically, just constantly trying to pick up ladies. So, he'll awkwardly, with his massive Peter Crouch length frame, wander over to a group of ladies and like, "Hello, ladies." It's just, and he's just, do you remember in The Office when, what is it? David Brent is going on about his big googly eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a very funny guy, isn't he, in a very understated way. But I tell you, I don't know, again, one of the things, do you know anything about this? I mean, is there this whole underground wrestling circuit in Norwich? What's the score there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, honestly.
Is there?
There is, yeah. It's so true. That's what I'm saying about watching the documentary. So a lot of the independent wrestling, and this isn't just in the UK, in America as well, there's a lot of these shows. So this wrestling, they actually created, the mum and dad, Rick and Julie. They were obviously wrestlers themselves. And I think the dad actually wrestled with Big Daddy in that as well, Dave. So we're talking like, late 70s, early 80s, when he was still telly. I think he was a bit of a jobber, which a jobber is basically what they were saying about Zach as the film was on. He's not someone who's going to be a star. He's going to be someone who just gets beat up. So, you're a kid, you might watch Ultimate Warrior run to the ring, and he'd be some no-mark you've never even heard of.
Yeah.
And he'd just decimate him in like a minute. And the guy would be like out of shape. He'd just like some guy who's come out of a shop somewhere or something, just put some wrestling tag like that. So the dad wasn't that big, and the mum was. The mum was a really, really respected wrestler, Dave. Really, and in the documentary, which obviously I'm going to, I will keep nodding back to it. You can see her mum was a really good wrestler, and he was more like an enforcer, and obviously he was a thug as well in real life for a long part of his adult life. But there is an underground scene, so they'll end up at like Butlins, Dave, Pontins. Where I've seen the wrestling at the Butlins and that, and it's these sort of characters because the UK wrestling is not getting big. It's getting big now, but it wasn't ever big. They always had to go to America. So you had like the British Bulldog and Dynamite Kid went over there. Lord Stephen Regal, he's from Blackpool. He had to go over to America. He's still there now. He's one of the WWE's top writers and performance coaches, Paige. Whereas now, WWE, this NXT, which is where Paige ends up in America, they've actually got a UK base now. So it's going to build and it's building properly. But most of it, Dave, it's so right. It's literally... That's what it is, and there's actually, and to ruin the documentary, but there's a scene in the documentary where the brother who's in prison in this who comes out. They're called. They actually Zach and him create a tag team called the Football Hooligans, right, or the Hooligans, and they just look like the proper EDL. Doc Martens, cut-off jeans, skinhead, the full bomber jacket with the braces on, Dave. The proper braces and the white vest. But they've actually got them all round the ring, screaming at it like it's real. These proper, like, they don't look, they're definitely in some white right-wing group, Dave. Definitely, you've got to watch it. But this is where it's for the audience. They're not really like that. It's for the audience. It's a character. But people buy into it, like Hulk Hogan, say your prayer, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, and all that stuff. I mean, who the hell would believe that 30 years later, a guy's dressing up as an Undertaker and like rising from the dead out of a coffin every time there's a match on and stuff? It's just, it's escape from reality, But there is a world there, Dave, because what they do, and they do it, and obviously they actually do it in the film, is they all fight each other. So you've got mum and dad who are a tag team fighting against the son and daughter.
Yeah.
So there is an underground scene. They are genuinely, and they're still going now. I think the dad's about 65 now, and he's still wrestling and doing what he is. So, yeah, honestly, there is. It's a strange world, Dave, a really bizarre world, but there is money in it if you can get the right thing. I don't think they're making a lot of money, as you can see, but there is something there with the right audience, which is just bizarre. Even for me as a wrestling fan, it's bizarre.
I think one of the scenes that was quite funny as well. Obviously, the dad, he's on the phone, he's doing a bit of haggling, trying to set up a match. One of his clients there, Union Jack, and sort of saying, "Will you, take some? Was it take a punch to the face and then take a bowling ball to the, to the crown jewels kind of thing?" It's like, yeah, okay, go ahead, do it.
Yeah.
And I guess it was a bit of an eye-opener for me that, again, in that underground circuit, they do really have to take some punishment.
Yes, they do, Dave. I mean, especially now, what you've got is, in the last 10 years or so, you've got this thing, probably the last 20 years. The indie scene, Dave, it's either totally ridiculous. Now, I've sent you videos of some of the most nonsense wrestling stuff. Like there's one in the WWE, a guy, he was an Italian guy called Santino, right, Morello, and basically he used to put a sock on his hand like Mick Foley, Mankind, and it's like it was a snake. And some guy, this is in a WWE ring from a couple of years ago, Dave. Some guy at the side, he's about to do his finishing move, which is when he puts a sock down the throat and like chokes him out. Some guy's at the side playing a flute and charms the sock snake in his hand, but obviously it's his hand. It is like a snake. I've got to send it you. It's nonsense, but it charms it. But the way he does it, it's so ridiculous. You're sort of laughing, going, "This is just stupid." But he's like, his hand then starts choking him, and all this. It's just nonsense. But there's one, right, babe, there's one in Japan where literally they do a crotch thrust. Do not touch them, and it knocks the other team over and stuff. Like these evangelists where you see him, don't you, doing these stupid things where they'll put the hand on like one guy and about 40 people fall down behind him.
Yeah.
It's like that. Real ridiculous. I mean, there was one I sent you, and obviously we can't say it on the show with the women, and it was utterly unbelievable, the move that she did. But the shock factor, so they'll have like barbed wire matches, Dave, fire matches, they'll have they'll have it all. Like you see in the film, he has a drawing pin match with somebody's act.
Yeah.
Zodiac was later on, and that is genuinely stuff that happens. So they end up like loads of them have been injured, like they're thrown in through tables and everything. And like you say, even though it's choreographed stunt work, really, it still hurts. They still get injured. So it's bizarre, but there is, and I've gone off on a tangent, but there's a proper underground scene, especially around Norwich as well.
Yeah. Like I say, it was good fun with that fella's taking it all. But like I say, it did make me think like they must really put themselves through the ringer, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of this stage, obviously, I thought it was pretty obvious that, you know, Paige, let's call her Paige, was going to be the only person who got passed through right up until this point. I mean, the brother and sister, they've been quite close, haven't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got plenty of brothers and sisters, haven't they? Are you that lovey-dovey with all your brothers and sisters?
No, I mean, I'm a bit better as we've got older, but not when we were that age. We all were, these 9 of us, we were all fighting one way or the other, I think. So, and I'm the oldest, so I got the brunt of most of the abuse and stuff, you know, and I was usually the peacekeeper. But no, I agree. He's not like that. And I think the one thing that they do here is she obviously gets taken on, and she feels guilty about him because she knows it's more his dream than hers, but she's actually got the talent for it. Now, I said this to you after you watched this, obviously off the podcast, that she was always going to get taken on because, unfortunately, and it's so wrong, it's very much like what they do with the female models and stuff like that, when they say to them, like, you've got to lose weight. The WWE, as a male wrestler, you've either got to be the best person on the microphone, Dave, where you can sell sand to the Egyptians or whatever, or whatever you can do. You could literally have to promote yourself so good to stand out above the crowd, or you've got to be an absolute freak of nature like Dave Bautista. And unfortunately, Zach, even in this film, and having watched the documentary, has neither of them. So I knew watching it, even though I didn't know the outcome of it, that I'd never seen a brother on WWE. So I don't know if he got sent over or not, but genuinely, there was no way, like you say, it was going to happen. So that creates a lot of jealousy. So there's quite an emotional side to a character because she's totally torn, Paige, about going in. She doesn't want to go to there because she don't want to leave. And she actually contacts Hutch, doesn't she, and says to him after the show, "You've got to take me." And he's walking off to his Range Rover in the outside the O2. And she's like, "You've got to take him I won't come." And he went, "Well, if you don't come, you've got 5 seconds. And that's it. We won't see you again." And eventually she decides to go, doesn't she? But there's a good section now where it comes up with a brother and he goes off the rails, that. But it's very much, I don't know about you, Dave, the beats of this film, and I love Rocky, were very much like a Rocky type film, weren't they? So she goes to the WWE NXT Performance Center and she's going through like all this training and she's struggling.
So what is NXT?
Well, NXT is their development. So it's next, basically. NXT, it's next. The logo is an N, an X, and a T, but it means next. So it means the next generation of wrestlers. So what they do is, years ago, say like me and you want to go in the WWE, right? So we go in there. They're not going to put you straight on Monday Night Raw. They're not going to put you at WrestleMania. What they would do years ago, so when we were younger, say 20 years ago, when we were like 20 odd, they would send us to these development territories. So they'd send us to like the Mid-South, Dave. So you'd end up in like Tennessee or Kentucky. And these proper, like what you see Paige's family wrestling in, these proper flea pit wrestling things where like the smoking, the putting the fag dimps out on your backside as you're wrestling and all, proper smoker type place. And they would send them off there for months and see if you actually set the place on fire. And then they would bring you back and put you on TV, or it might be a year or so. But they didn't have designated performance centres. So what they've done is they've gone down the route of having proper performance centres now. So they've got proper training facilities where they do all the training there for them. So you go in as like an apprentice when you leave school. You go in, they show you how to work the mic, show you how to work a crowd. They do little matches in there. You get all the best trainers, all ex-WWE wrestlers are trainers. And then, so they brought this NXT out about 6 or 7 years ago. So it ties in with when Paige come into this. And basically, instead of sending them out to these territories, this NXT has its own shows, which are on a lower level than the WWE. But they're actually more popular now, Dave, because there's not all the razzmatazz. It's just pure wrestling and ability. So they still have the storylines, but it's more technical. It's more like the old school wrestling with like Bret the Hitman Hart type level. And so that's where this comes in. So what the WWE does is it contains all its talent within It's a bit like an academy at football. So you've got like
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
21s
thinking
and,
there,
you know,
yeah.
that sort of thing. So they keep them there so they can keep an eye on them, and they show them all the way, because one of the things with wrestling, and we're getting a bit serious now, the wrestling is, a lot of the wrestlers from our era are not here because they had steroid addiction, painkiller addictions, because they wrestle for like 300 days of the year. So they don't get any time off. So because of the money they make, they have to keep taking uppers, downers. They can't sleep. They're driving everywhere. They literally get to an airport and they've got to drive to the next show and all this. So it's a lonely life. So that's why WWE now are trying to stop all this. And that's where NXT comes in. So NXT has its own pay-per-view events now and everything. It's really doing really well. And that's why they're bringing the UK one out. So she ends up there, and she's one of the first ones to go through. But because she's got the wrestling ability, as we see at the start of this sort of journey when she gets to America, she's never... Because you see, what I found really good, Dave, is there's a scene where she leaves Norwich and she leaves the family at the airport. And if you watch the documentary, it's literally beat for beat. Absolute double beat for beat. You won't believe it. But yeah, she goes over there, and as usual, there has to be some sort of storyline. So she totally does not take to all these girls who are like fitness models, bikini models, aren't they? They're all swimwear models, and she's just this normal girl from Norwich, isn't she? And there's a lot of like bitching goes on between a lot of them.
She's like a bit of a goth, isn't she? A bit of a rock chick kind of thing, and just doesn't fit in. And I couldn't actually work out, were the girls being bitchy, or was it... Because you never actually heard them bitching, I don't think. Was it just her who felt like she was being bitched about?
Yeah, and I think, I think as it comes up to later on, you're right. I think what all that happened was they were just, a couple of times they're looking at her. They might have been in awe of her, to be honest, Dave, because she could actually wrestle. Because what you get in this world is a lot of them don't know how to wrestle. Now, she's come from a wrestling background where she wrestled for years. Her family are into wrestlers. The girl in this film who she has a few beefs with and gives her a few elbows, doesn't she? And Paige gives her what she called a receipt, which is a wrestling term, which basically means she actually proper hits her. She open hand slaps her. Is a girl called Eva Marie, who's actually... Eva Marie is a fitness model who didn't have a clue about wrestling, Dave, but because of her looks, they promoted her, but the fans hated her. So I think even though a lot of these girls in this film, like Jerry Lynn is the main one who she's up against, who's the girl who gives her the slaps and the elbows, she's actually based on real people. So it's weird because some people are real and others are just like a fabrication of maybe two or three people. But yeah, she does. She really struggles when she goes over there. And even with the training, she thinks she's fit, doesn't she? But she's not that fit.
I mean, she basically, calls them out for being models, but... And definitely you get a Rocky feel when it's the sprinting along the beach, don't you? You just needed a bit of Hearts on Fire music running there. But, she gets whooped, really.
Yes,
the others are a lot fitter and seemingly tougher. She might be a better technical wrestler, but, as far as the story's concerned, they're fitter and stronger at the start.
Yeah, and it shows her doing like a Skype call, done it to her family, and her brother Zach is just having none of it. He's just gone off the rails. He's drinking. He's had his baby. You can see he's not even bothered about his kid. As his kid's born, he's got the baby in his arms, and he's just got a total vacant look. So I think that builds up really well, and I think they play a story through this where Zach is her other sides of the coin. Like we talk about the Batman and Joker being two sides of the same coin. It's basically that Paige doesn't feel as if she can, and very much like you said, like the Rocky situation, like Rocky 3 really in some respects. Some of the beats with this is she doesn't feel she's putting everything into it because she's not getting the support she thought she wanted because she feels guilty about Zach. So it's really good, and I think what you just said is a very good point because I never thought of it like that. There's a scene later on where she dyes her hair blonde, doesn't she, and like totally vamps herself up to make herself look like these models. But then on the coach after one of the events, she jumps up, doesn't she, and has to go up that Jerry Lynn and starts kicking off. She's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm not even talking to you. And she shows a picture of her daughter, doesn't she, saying, I'm missing my daughter. I've not seen her for 3 months. And she feels guilty then. And I think that's like that bit of the film is where she struggled with the training. She can't do it. And he keeps saying to her, really, here's the bell. Vince Vaughn's character, Morgan, gone, here's the bell, go.
Horn.
Yeah, the horn, sorry. And, the horn, press that and you can go. And what he ends up doing then is he sends her back to the UK, doesn't he? Because she feels like she's got to come back. She's had enough. She's found out her mum and dad are promoting and selling her merchandise. They spelt her name wrong, but they're still selling her merchandise in the UK. And then they book her for a match against the brother at Christmas, don't they?
Yeah.
And he absolutely hammers it, even though we know it's predetermined. The story is because she's this returning hero for America. She comes and wins, and he doesn't play it like that, does he? He actually hurts her in the ring, and this is where it all unravels with Zach, doesn't it? Where he goes to a pub then and gets into a massive brawl, doesn't he, and stuff, and beats up about 3 blokes.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I get the feeling the guy in real life is probably a bit bigger and a bit harder than this actor, because I thought when he did that, I thought, I don't fancy your chances there. I mean, he did all right, obviously, but I thought he was taking a bit of a chance there.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of artistic license with that one, David. It doesn't matter how hard you are, but you fight 4 blokes in a pub. It's pretty rare that you're going to come out unscathed in it. But he does give him an ass whopping, and his dad comes in. Sort of, I think maybe, well, to be fair, his dad comes in, doesn't he, Rick, and saves him before anything else happens. And this is where it all unravels with her. And what I found interesting, David, with the settings of a house and that is, knowing that she lived in Norwich and knowing, I'd not watched the documentary when I watched the film, but knowing that the size of the house, I love the way for the film they made a bedroom look absolutely huge, proper American-sized bedroom. And I'm thinking, there's no way Norwich they're going to be the size of that room, because everyone fits in there. But she ends up coming back, and they're saying to her about her hair, aren't they? Like, why, basically saying to her, you're not being yourself. And we have a bit of a come together between her and Zach, don't they? And her and Zach sort of make it up, and she decides to come back. Very much, all we needed was the Rocky music day, him and Apollo on the beach in Rocky 3 when he decides he's going to race him again and stuff. It was beat for beat a Rocky story, really, redemption, I think. Yeah,
but I mean, he was obviously feeling sorry for himself. He went off the rails a bit there, but I mean, it was right what he was saying to her, because she was not having a good time of it. She was prepared to give it all up because it was a bit tough. And let's face it, young girl, it seemed very family oriented. They did everything together, going out, doing the wrestling and everything. And then suddenly you're out there on your own in a land that you don't understand really. You don't have many friends. There's no support structure around you. So it's very, very hard. But, he's saying, well, if it's your dream, why are you throwing it all away? Well, a good point.
Yeah, and he's right, isn't he? Because he wants that more than anything, and he felt so upset with her, as if to say, "You're ruining everything that I wanted. You've got everything I wanted, and you don't care."
Yeah,
I think that's what she needed. She needed that sort of acceptance and sort of clarification from him that he was supported. He was just disappointed with himself, and I think that's why the whole thing. But now, one of the things in real life with this, Dave, this whole section where she goes back, is Zach actually, now they make it out like Zach is this downbeat sort of loser, and he's level, he's been in Norwich helping these kids, he's never going to make it. But actually, he does actually go and wrestle in WWE later on, and he actually does it. It's only a tryout match against the Big Show, the big giant who's like 7 foot, and there's about 3 of them fighting. But he gives a good account of himself.
Right.
But you can see in this match, and again, I'm going back to the documentary. It's in the documentary. You can see in this match, Dave, he's just so small compared to the Big Show, who's like 7 foot, he's about 400-pound monster.
Yeah.
I mean, most people are going to be small against him, don't get me wrong. But I think he's only about 6 foot. I mean, they're saying in the film he was 6'4". He was never 6'4" in real life. But in the film, they were saying he was that big and all this. But really, really interesting character. And I think what they did with the film, he says one thing in the documentary saying, I wish I was her. Sometimes I just wish I was Soraya or Paige. And that's where this whole jealousy angle come in with the film. And I found it so interesting how they actually made that whole thing into a story. I'd love to know what his thoughts are now, watching it, if he admitted that was true or whether he was happy with the actual outcome. Because they've not interviewed the family at all, I don't think. She's been to all the premieres page and stuff and all like the showcase of it, but I've not read anything what the actual family think of it. So, because they paint him in quite a poor picture, don't they, for most of the film?
Yeah, that whole middle section, really, he doesn't come, he comes across a bit of a tool, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's a shame. I mean, it's a shame. If it was true, then that's fine, no problem. But it seemed for him, a brother thinking of it in real life, he hasn't got anything to gain out of this. It just makes him look really sort of jealous and vindictive, doesn't it? I know he redeems himself, but it still must be hard for him to watch it and go, was I really like that? Or is it, or why have you done that or whatever? It's strange. He must have had the okay from the family, but really, really strange thing because he doesn't gain anything out of that at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's that realization from him as well, from the brother who comes out of jail, isn't there?
Yeah.
So they're out there jogging, and the older brother, they're going on about making it and whatever, and the older brother says, Soraya or Paige, she'll be fine because I wouldn't have because I didn't have you. So he was saying to Zach, you're a contributor to her success. I thought it was a really nice short line, a very nice, concise way of saying that. Yeah,
I do. And I think as well, Dave, the film as a whole, it's so well put together in it. The setting of it being in Norwich and then in the US and the way they flick across, I thought it was a great film. I think it's a really good feel factor film into it, and there's a genuine story behind her character as well, and the family are actually quite likable as well.
Yeah. But I mean, she ends up, she takes this bit of advice, and then she goes back, and then she trains harder, and then as she's getting better, she's also developing a better relationship with some of her fellow female wrestlers. She's geeing them on as well. So that's definitely where it's feeling a bit more rocky, isn't it? You need the rocky music at this point.
Yeah, the proper montages come on at this point. But again, I think as well, Dave, this is quite real to what actually happened with her. So there's going to be a little bit like she was actually wrestling for a long time at NXT before she got this big WWE break. But
I wanted to ask you about that because you couldn't really get a sense of time, could you? So in between her coming back, because it seemed like she'd gone home for Christmas or something, or summer break, whatever. And then, she came back, she worked harder, and then kind of got a big break. But I wondered in real life, how long was that?
It was at least a year to 18 months before because what she ended up being is, in the way they depict it in the film is, she goes to NXT, she cuts her teeth to keep her on. They show her at a couple of events. Obviously, there's this whole thing, which is a bit of a subplot, which was for the film, that she freezes on the microphone, doesn't she? So she gets on the mic in front of a live crowd, and they're all slagging her off, aren't they? Like saying, you're British, you've got bad teeth, you all this sort of thing, and you can hear them heckling her, and she freezes on the mic. Well, that isn't actually true. Paige is one of the best mic workers out of all the women. She actually is as good as like some of the best men out there, Dave, and it's not being sexist by any means. Someone who watched wrestling for years, a lot of the ladies who are not wrestlers, as was mentioned by Eva Marie and that, it seems too forced and it's just like reading from scripts, whereas Paige would go off script. She would ad-lib like The Rock and Stone Cold and Hulk Hogan. So she was always renowned for that. So that's actually just something that was in there for the actual for the film. It works because obviously she's tongue-tied. She sort of storms off, doesn't she, in the rafters. Morgan's watching her, Vince Vaughn. So you sort of think she's not going to make it. But she ends up being the NXT champion, the women's champion. She's actually their champion for quite a long time. The whole thing, there's no timeline to it. You are correct, but it's over about 18 months. But in the film, it's literally over the space of a couple of months, really. It's a bit like a fairy tale story, isn't it? The way they depict it in the film, it's literally rags to riches within 6 months or something. But it is simply not that. She even failed to try out for the WWE. The one that she passed, she actually failed one before that. She'd gone before the year before, okay. But they don't show that in the film. Which is not. I'm not slagging the film off by any means because it's just the storytelling. But me being the sort of wrestling historian, I went in the back then looking at what's reality and what's not. Like, she ends up basically going to WrestleMania 30, and Morgan says to her, Paige, can you come with me? So she's there with the girls, isn't she, and the lads, and they're all like watching what's going on with WrestleMania 30. Now, this was filmed at WrestleMania 30. The Rock was actually there because he was there with Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold at the start of WrestleMania 30. They came out and cheered the crowd up. They didn't fight, they just cheered the crowd up and all that. And then he says, someone wants to see you. So she ends up in his sort of suite, doesn't she? And the Rock comes in. And that's when you get the thing where he rings the dad, doesn't he? He goes, he does the, if you smell what the Rock is cooking, and the dad goes, yeah, okay. And then puts the phone down, and it's really funny. Nick Frost is really funny because he's like, okay, Mr. Rock, I love you and all this because
I love that. I love you. I love you too.
Yeah, because he puts the phone on, she rings him back, I'm so sorry. Now, Dave, that was totally fabricated. That none of that was even true in real life. And it's not to mess up on the film, but that was all just purely to get the Rock in the film. And he says to her, you're on Raw tomorrow night fighting against AJ Lee. Now, AJ Lee was the champ for a long time, and that was all true. But she actually went into it, Paige, as the NXT champion against the WWE champion. So she was a champion, not on the level of AJ Lee, but she was a renowned, respected. She was the trailblazer. And that comic that you actually use in the comic background is the reason that we sort of picked it out, was because Paige was like the sort of figurehead for this women's revival, where for years, we're going proper like political now, for years they were just known as divas. So they were all about the TNA, and everyone knows what TNA means. That's all they were, Dave. No, they were, Dave. It's wrong. It's totally sexist. You watch the Attitude Era, which is the best era of wrestling, all the women were just treated like strippers and stuff like that. They were just totally, degraded all the way through. They would wrestle, but it'd be like bra and panties match, mud wrestling match, chocolate wrestling match, and all this sort of thing. And she came in as an actual bona fide wrestler. With another girl called Natalia, who's Bret the Hitman Hart's niece, and she was a little bit before Paige, but they come in as genuine wrestlers with proper credentials, background. They'd actually trained in wrestling, so it was a big figurehead in now. They changed it from the WWE Divas Championship to the WWE Women's Championship, and it doesn't sound a lot, Dave, but it is a lot, and this is where, by doing this biography on her life, is quite interesting because Paige set the stall out with a couple of others. She wasn't on her own, but because she was British and she, like you said, she was not a typical fitness model. She was like a goth, a rocker sort of thing. But everyone was drawn to her because they believed in her character. So it was good. And then when she goes on Raw, and the family are all watching, aren't they? What I like, Dave, is Raw. He's on at like 2 a.m, and I was laughing. I bet their neighbours loved them when they were watching that, when she made that thing. But that's like 2 a.m. or something when she would have been fighting. So, but yeah, it's not, like I said, I'm not absolutely messing on the film. I'm just giving a bit of background to what the reality is to the film because I know it so well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, look, you can never get into a 90-minute film or whatever, what the real life is. And real life is not, you can't condense it into a nice narrative, can you?
No.
Like saying that time. So they obviously have to use their artistic license there. I tell you what did make me laugh when she was filling her boots at the buffet. She stood there with a couple of wrestlers and they looked like they were about 7 foot and she looked like she was about 5 foot or something. They absolutely dwarfed her. And I that had me questioning, like, for the female wrestlers, I mean, in comparison to the blokes, I mean, but what kind of height are we talking?
Well, to be fair,
for a typical female wrestler? No,
just normal height, Dave. Sorry to cut across. The guys who she was talking to, one of them was the Big Show, who coincidentally actually fought against the brother. He's 7 foot tall. So not the gingerhead one, the other guy who had the big beard and the bald head. He's like, he originally was billed as the son of Andre the Giant when he come into it, Dave. He isn't. But he always wears the black sort of leotard like Andre, but he's 7 foot. Now, the other guy, Sheamus, unfortunately, Dave, he's one of your boys. He's actually from Dublin, but he's a Liverpool fan. He's always got his Liverpool shirts on and
nice.
He's always at Anfield and that. So he's a massive Liverpool fan. But Sheamus, he's about 6'7", 6'6". So, but to be fair, the girl who plays Paige, she was stood next to the real Paige at the premiere, and I think Paige must be 5'8", 5'9", but that girl must be about 5'1", Dave, 5 foot, 5'2". So you can see they're about, I'd say 5'6" upwards, most of the female wrestlers. because they don't do a lot of intergender matches now. Like years ago, you would get these weird oddball matches where the women couldn't, the men couldn't hit the women, but they'd be in a tag team and all this stuff. And a lot of the wrestlers then, the female wrestlers ended up big, the ones that were in it years ago, like they were proper like steroid heads. But no, she's quite small, the girl who plays Paige in the film. So she is literally 2 foot smaller than them on there. I think that's just more a continuity thing. But yeah, that sort of thing she's doing is quite common, where she's steamed in there eating all the buffet and they're like, save us some sort of thing. But it's sort of like a pecking order. She hasn't earned her teeth, but she steams in there. And that's what I think it was depicting. Paige had a proper attitude on her, which people liked because she didn't stand any messing because of the family background. Yeah. So, yeah. But, yeah, so I'd say about 5, 6 upwards, Dave.
Very good. Very good.
So, yeah, I think that's at the end of it. Now, obviously, at the end of the film, when the credits roll, she wins the title, wins it all. There's a big, montage. But they actually...
Just before we get into the credits, actually, I guess what I was a bit surprised about, I mean, the match seemed to be over pretty quickly, and she I guess I thought that was going to be, again, thinking back to the Rocky template, the boxing matches do last for quite a few minutes, don't they? Whereas this seemed to be over really quickly. And, she finishes off with a rousing speech there about being the outsider, and if you feel like the outsider, again, it was a well-written speech, I thought. I don't know how real of any of that stuff is. But yeah, it all seemed to happen pretty quickly, making a debut in the WWE, getting straight in there with a title shot. It just all seemed to be over before it started.
Yeah, I must admit, you are right. It was quite quick at the end, almost rushed like. But the speech is true at the end. That's pretty much like for like. And what they did was they filmed it after a Raw had been on. So they made the crowd stay in and said, we're filming this match. Now, don't forget, when I've watched wrestling stuff, and we know in this film, they don't hide the fact that it's predetermined, the matches with the brother and all that stuff. But when they actually have somebody trying to wrestle in a film and make it look real, that's why they don't last very long. Like, you had Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Great film. That's a proper throwback to the fact that the wrestlers from our era were all like ex-bodybuilders whose bodies just give up on them because they were on that many painkillers and they were trying to chase that dream all the time. And it's difficult because obviously when you watch a film, the fake fighting, but also when you're doing a wrestling biopic, it's hard to make fake fighting look fake when they're actually not even wrestlers, they're actually actors. So you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So you've got two things going on at once. It's not just a case of doing a choreographed fight. You're choreographing wrestling, which isn't real anyway. So that's why and she probably hasn't got the technical ability to do a proper match. I know what you mean. You mean like a proper Rocky backwards and forwards. She's on the way out. But I think because, for me, I was happy with that because knowing it's already predetermined, I don't buy into it, even though I like the film, when there's these sort of, oh my God, he's just broke her back and all this stuff. It's all, that they haven't, other than the bit when he actually fought her, when she come back from Christmas and he wrecked her in Norwich. There was some realism because what they call it is, she lets him do the moves, but they call him, they wrestle stiff. So when they wrestle stiff, it means that they'll punch him properly. And they punch him stiff. That, like what she was saying about giving them receipts in the film where she slaps him. They wrestle stiff, so they'll get stiff punches, which means they actually punch him properly. And basically when they're telling him off, and I think that's what they were saying with him. But obviously I know that being a wrestling fan, but I was happy with it because you didn't get the excitement of it, but also I don't think I could have bought into a 10-minute back and forth match because it's already predetermined, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's for me anyway, but...
Yeah, like I say, it's predetermined, but of course it is. She was always going to win, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Whether it was the real life or not. I mean, I guess, I'll say that. I mean, Rocky didn't win, did he? No, not all the time. He didn't in the first one, did he? So that first one, and that was, the groundbreaking one, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. He lost it. he lost on the decision, didn't he? Split decision.
He was kind of that glorious loser, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a majority draw, so the champ gets the belt, doesn't he? He didn't actually lose as such, but he didn't win. And then, obviously, he got beat by Clubber Lang as well in Rocky III. Mr. T beat him.
Oh yeah, but he won back in the same movie. But I mean, at this final act, at the last thing, you know, I was expecting that Page would win, but like I say, thinking back to the first Rocky at the end, you know, end of the movie, he hasn't won. So yeah, maybe it could have gone the other way.
No, hey Dave, I'm not saying I'm right or you're wrong. Whatever, I understand that it is a bit quick. The whole timeline of her getting into the sort of turning her life around and the training round. But, you know, at the end I thought was nice because we get the credits rolling and we actually get to see parts of the documentary which are used in the film. And it's uncanny, some of the things, because a family are just, you know, you couldn't even imagine they even function as a family the way they are, because they're volatile, don't they, in the wrestling, and a dad and a mum and everything. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed
Dad's
the whole
there
thing.
with the Arsenal shirt on.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, he's got that on a few times, and the son has as well. Because you think they'd be Norwich fans, wouldn't you? But the brother's got an Arsenal shirt as well. The old Burkamp ones from years ago. But,
right.
No, really good. So, do you want to go into the review scores, Dave?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So, Dave, I think it might be you this week first.
I think you might be right. So I went into this movie not really knowing what it was going to be about. I'd seen a little bit. I saw The Rock was in it. I saw it was about wrestling. So it was a bit of a surprise to me about how it's centered around, you know, Paige and the whole this women's revolution within the WWE. So that was quite a nice surprise, actually. I guess you don't have any expectations from there. You know, it was definitely exceeded. I thought the story was well written. I thought, you know, you've got Stephen Merchant at the helm, so it's going to be a certain level of quality straight off the bat. I thought the performances of the actress and the guy who played Zach was really good as well. I thought, you know, from going from that very supportive, loving brother to being a total tool to, you know, slightly redeeming himself at the end. I couldn't get over the fact, I thought, is this like Simon Pegg's younger brother or something? I thought, you know, he was a slightly better looking version probably. But yeah, I could get over that. I thought, you know, by the end, I thought the pacing wise, I thought it lulled a little bit in the middle, and then you get to the end and the match is over really quickly. But, you know, those are just nitpicks, really. I thought it was a good movie. I came out of it thinking, yeah, that was good. I don't think I necessarily need to go back and watch it again. Maybe if it's on, you know, maybe if I've had a few too many sherries on a Saturday night and I'm lying on the sofa on a Sunday afternoon and it's on, I might watch it. But so it was good, but not great for me. So I'm going to send it to Atlantis.
Good stuff.
Chris, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, watching it, knowing the background of Paige, the character, where she's come from, bits about her life before the WWE, intrigued to watch it. I knew The Rock was going to be in it as a cameo. Obviously, Stephen Merchant on board is always a plus. And I genuinely watched it and enjoyed it. I enjoyed the setting, where they are in Norwich, the realism of it, how close it was to the documentary about her. I thought Vince Vaughn was pretty good in it as the sort of tyrant trainer, but, you know, he sort of redeems himself at the end because he's really proud of her. He's pushed her sort of that bit more, a bit like a football coach. I thought everything. I thought, you know, Nick Frost was good. The brother, Zach Zodiac, he was good. I don't think, as much as the review scores at 90%, I'm pretty much where you are, Dave. I don't think it's going to be something that I'd go out and buy. Probably not. If it was on Channel 4 or Film 4, would I watch it again? Definitely. if it was on Netflix, I don't think I'd watch it. I think it's the sort of thing where when it was on again, I'd watch it if I missed the start of it or whatever, because I did enjoy it. I really, really did enjoy it. I don't actually think, to be honest, it's actually a cinema type film, if I'm being completely honest. It is a streaming film or something you'd watch at home. I just think I went to the cinema to watch it, mainly because of my Limitless card. And and obviously we talked about what we were going to review, and I said it was a good film. You went and watched it at the cinema, but it isn't really a cinema film. So if you've not seen it at the cinema, I wouldn't go crazy over it. It will be available, as I mentioned at the top of the show, on one of the streaming services. But as a story, forgetting the fact that I've told you about some of the stuff that was real and what wasn't, the artistic license with it, it's a good, feel-good film. So I'm going to send it to Atlantis as well. It is never going to be an Asgard for me. As much as I'm a wrestling fan and I love my history of wrestling, it's just a good, feel-good film. So yeah, Atlantis for me.
Very good, very good. Well, Chris, have you got any plugs for us?
Yeah, so if you want to get in contact with the show, it's on Twitter at comicsinmotionp, or if you want to email us, it's comicsinmotionpodcast@gmail.com. And as Dave mentioned at the top of the show, please get on to iTunes or your podcast hosting site and give us a 5-star review. Just helps us grow and makes all the content better for you guys who listen as well. So please get on there, guys, and it's Comics in Motion Podcast on all your podcast hosting sites, which you should know that because you listen to us, but you never know.
And Chris, how would you mention before your wrestling focus? Well, it's part wrestling, part boxing, part MMA, isn't it? So where could someone go and find that podcast? Yeah, it's on Anchor or most podcast hosting sites now. It's called Indie Combat, and it's just myself every week talking over an old wrestling retro rewind section and MMA and boxing news as well. So yeah, Indie Combat, guys, get on there. It should be on all podcast hosting sites as well. So Chris, how are you going to see us out for this show? Well, Dave, it's a wrestling show. It's all about the WWE. We've had The Rock in there. And as The Rock would say, if you smell what The Rock is cooking.
What are your names again?
My name.
It doesn't matter what your names are. You walk around here interrupting The Rock, you like you haven't seen the sun in 20 years. You like you just stepped out of Oliver Twist. Please, sir, may I have some more advice, sir? You want some advice? Here's The Rock's advice. Shut your mouth.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Got it.
Call your name. That means you'll be coming with me to Florida. Paige. Thank you all very much.
What?
It's Dwayne Johnson. How are you?
Prove it.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
Yeah, and I'm Vin Diesel, mate.